Hey everybody, we are wrapping up Black History Month movie reviews with the Will Smith and Calvin Klein movie Wild Wild West. Boy, nobody liked this movie back in the day. I mean, maybe I didn't really pay attention as a kid. Came out in 1998, around the same time during I think uh, Star Wars Episode 1 came out. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it's definitely the same year. But yeah, I mean, maybe because I was a kid, I remember enjoying it. Excuse me. It's like I rewatched it a handful of times throughout the years, and it's like, yeah, now it has some more clarification, especially from other people's inputs about this movie, and know what's going on behind the scenes. Yeah, I can see why people more often than not dislike this movie. Will Smith turned down the offer to be Neo in the first Matrix movie for this film, and they ultimately gave it to Keanu Reeves. And Will Smith often talked about how like that's one of the worst mistakes of his lives, at least for his career wise. And looking back on it, especially after the fairly recent Matrix 4, I honestly think it's a good thing he turned it down, because let us say in a parallel universe that different decisions were made, and Will Smith did play the role of Neo, and Keanu Reeves took up the role for Jim West for Wild Wild West. Is to say, I mean, they didn't offer him that, but let's say they switched the things around. Keanu Reeves, the way he carries himself, obviously is vastly different from how Will Smith will carry himself. Both are really cool dudes, but they're two different variation of cool. Keanu Reeves has a very mellow, chill kind of tone, which I think fits in the world of The Matrix. While Will Smith's his getting jiggy with the attitude, for lack of a better kind of description, uh, I mean, the way he carries himself is always going to be cool. But in the world of The Matrix, I don't see how that fits. Not like you haven't played anything serious before, but it's just like, I don't know. If you go to God in that role, I don't see it getting past the first movie. While if Keanu Reeves was in Wild Wild West, I imagine it'll just turn it into what we have with John Wick. Uh, and keep in mind, uh, they both had been in some stingers before in the past, but I think more so Keanu Reeves now has, well, not now, but in the past, ever since the first John Wick movie, he's been like getting like pretty steady work, and people was just he had like a very solid renaissance that's still ongoing. Matter of fact, now think about it, the next John Wick movie. When they coming out again? Is it in March? I feel like it's in March. Keep in mind, because I got a lot of movies to review in the coming month. Yeah, March 24th. Matter of fact, that's the same day as like uh whatchamajig, the Shazam movie. No, it's the week after the Shazam movie, because it's Creed 3, Shazam, and uh John Wick. I don't have the spare cash to go through all of those. I definitely gotta see Shazam, and I definitely gotta see John Wick. Creed 3. I never seen any of the Creed movies in theaters when I had the opportunity. I can definitely always see it another time. It's not like, all right, I'm not like a huge Rocky kind of fan. I have an appreciation for Rocky, but I can afford to like stall that for a while. But yeah. Anyway, Wild West, starring Will Smith as Jim West, Kevin Kline as Jim West is a U.S. Army captain, and Kevin Kline is U.S. Marshal Artemus Gordon, who has a dual role as U.S. President Ulysses S. Grant. Kenneth Branagh playing the villain Dr. Arliss Lovelace, who I didn't even realize that was all these years. Didn't realize that was Kenneth Branagh. I only started getting familiar with Kenneth Branagh when I watched like the Murder on the Orient Express and the murder mysteries that he made, because he stars in that and directed both of those. And that's when I started to be a little bit more familiar with Kenneth Branagh's work. I'm pretty sure I've seen other stuff that he did at some point over the years, but I was just like, "Oh wait, yeah, there is Kenneth Branagh." I just never didn't recognize him. Yeah, Salma Hayek as Rita Escobar, Ted Levine as General McGrath, and Emmett Walsh as U.S. Marshal Coleman, the train conductor. So, anyway, it's 1869, and you got these two different U.S. officials pretty much going after the same thing. It's kind of like another buddy cop film, but in the Old West. Which, by the way, the Old West style films, it'd be great to have those kind of things come back. I know this whole situation with the whole Rust thing with Alec Baldwin is like turning pear-shaped for obvious reasons, but it's been a hot minute since he has like a actual good solid Western. Oh, and it's like, and nothing like Django Unchained, because that's still like a black trauma movie in my opinion. Like, it's like, because I give Wild Wild West this, we wasn't focused on, because they bring up about his like slave origins, but they wasn't like the focal point like there is with Django. He's just like a straight up cool, like Will Smith is playing like a straight up cool cowboy with a high ranking official title that he just kick butt with no qualms. And this is based off of a TV show that I haven't really realized it was like a TV show, but Will Smith, that's why he went on board, because he watched a Wild Wild West TV show when he was a kid. So, and by the way, the original actors who played the original Jim West and Gordon from the TV show, we're still, I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure they're live anymore at this point, but they definitely were back then in 1999, and they were offered to have some kind of cameo in this film, but after looking at the script, they was like, no, this is terrible. Like, nobody cared for this film. And of course, they started losing a bit of budget along the way. Or they had originally a budget of 170 million, then it went up to 241, and they rated it in the box office of 222.1 million. It still made cash, but man, it was, I don't hate it. People like you look back on certain movies between like, let's say like, let's go with like 1998 up until now. Something like Wild Wild West and Phantom Menace. We had so much crap that we dealt with comes to movies over the years, that we look back on those were like you know, like I said, it's like I would watch Wild West a bunch of times before like I watched Thor: Dark World ever again. I watched Thor: The Dark World one time. Pretty sure it was in the theaters. I never wanted to see that movie ever again. I despised that movie. Uh, uh, but there's other stuff that people would have probably would agree that. Oh, and then like the BVS and the theatrical cut of the Justice League movie. There's plenty of bad stuff that we dealt with over the years that look back on something like Wild Wild West was a cakewalk. So Gordon is pretty much like this is a buddy cop thing. Jim West is all about action. Gordon is like planning, tinkering with gizmos and stuff like that. So he dresses in a disguise as a woman, which after something like the old movie Master of Disguise, it's like, man, you did not put in the effort to like, actually have like a woman play this part of this saloon bar girl, and then have her pull off her mask, and boom, it's actually Gordon in like a very good disguise, something like that. This is just Calvin Klein in drag, and it's like you didn't put in much effort in this. It's kind of glaring. I mean, back then I didn't really mind it as much because like, oh, it's just a funny comedy, action comedy. So Gordon's trying to hypnotize McGrath, who's responsible at this massacre at New Liberty back in the day, and they're both been tracking this guy down because there's like a larger play here, because there are kidnapped scientists. There's a bunch of kidnapped scientists that McGrath knows something about, and of course, Jim West crashed into place, and they both holding guns at each other, telling each other to drop the gun. And it's like, oh, like I'm I'm a U.S. Army captain, or I'm a U.S. Army marshal. And so Lovelace, played by Brenna, released like a bunch of nitroglycerin into the this sitting on like a wheelbarrow thing that was on being pulled by horses, getting released next to the saloon, causing it to blow up. And they somehow make it out. I never really put that much thought into it back in the day, but looking upon it now, that's like, wow, that is like a weird cut. You didn't even, get them find like a way out of that death trap. So they go to Washington. Well, you see Jim going to Washington, and it's funny how you see like the White House has changed over the years. He walks inside and he's seemingly speaking with Ulysses S. Grant. But it turns out to be Gordon, and West quickly figures that out because of the ring, where it's like, Grant went to West Point. It says Harvard. And it's like, wow, you are a terrible master of disguise. And you're like, when you're a master of disguise, you expect to do some research, and you're not like the chameleon from Marvel, because like you just not like a pitch perfect disguise. It's like you gotta put in some freaking effort, study. Don't leave any kind of like obvious clues for people to pick up on. So Grant charges them to track down these scientists and stop this mysterious Artemis Lovelace, who's sending them a cake in like a container that has spiders in it. I was like, God, that's creepy. So Jim and Gordon are having like a bigger amongst each other because like there are different ways of handling crime essentially. Uh, this train that they're on, Gordon fixed up himself. He has all these gizmos and traps and all this other stuff. And they find out through, because the opening is with one of the scientists being chased down by a buzzsaw following this collar he's on. It's magnetized and his head gets severed. And so they managed to collect the head, and utilizing this machine is able to peer into his eyes and, talking about sciencey BS. But it peers in his eyes is the last image he saw. And he sees McGrath with, once again, this is very BS. Even when times I watch this over the years, I always try to make a note of like looking for that pocket that has this brochure to this invitation to this gala in New Orleans, being hosted by Loveless, and it's like it's not there. It even was there. The image shown has a like just like excuse me. I got no sheet of paper here. I got my notepad here. It's like this is my notepad here. It's like, imagine my notepad being like this much poking out, right, of my jacket pocket, and there's like writing on the side and whatever like that, and Jim is reading like he's reading the entire thing. He's only seeing like the corner, like parts of the corner. I'm like, dude, that is bottom like that is so, I don't even want to call it coincidence. That's BS completely. That's like you're reading like an entire paragraph, you're only seeing parts of it. How you, it doesn't make any sense. So of course Jim initially wanted to go in New Orleans because that's where he heard like a bunch of criminals he's busting with that nitro with earlier in the film said it was going. And then it's like the brochure said like, oh, New Orleans. God. Oh my God. So I want to say, stop and say, because I the one I end up forgetting. Even though it's like those kind of bad but good at least personally, it's like what's those things, what do you call those, the it's not so bad as good because it's really bad, but it's like guilty pleasure. It's a guilty pleasure kind of film, so that I check in every once in a while. The same way that most people like me feel about Morbius, even though I think arguably Morbius is probably a little bit more fun than this. But anyway, I remember like, cause my father was dating my former stepmom at that time, and me, my younger brother, and my father and her went out to go see Wild Wild West because Will Smith was like a big name draw. Like he was on like a cool streak when it comes. He was like a box office draw. So we was all going to see there, and it's like we had a good time. And like I remember going out for like KFC afterwards. I did the same thing with Phantom Menace. I don't know why I'm bringing this up because it's just like these bad movies I still had a fine time at, and I had like a cool meal afterwards. I don't know why I brought it up. I just kind of feel like I want to discuss that. I just want to say because because every time I think of Wild Wild West and Phantom Menace, I think about KFC because I remember going out with my folks and my brother to KFC after watching these two particular movies. I don't know why that always stuck with me. It's probably because it's like it's probably one of the rare few good moments I had with my stepmother before she went completely like a total ass. But anyway, Gordon is suggesting that they go in disguise because it wouldn't look, because this is like a former plantation house where this gala is being hosted, and it's like a black man with guns, doesn't matter if he had a badge, comes waltzing on in and start asking questions. You don't think, like, you know, they'll feel some type of way about that? But Jim West doesn't want to hear about it. And then we get this funny moment. It's still kind of funny to me. You know, some people's, you know, things that make them laugh is different from person to person, but this made me laugh still. Where it's like, you know, Jim's mocking the woman outfit Gordon wore when they first met, and how like the breasts were fake, and he showed him the fake breasts, and it's like it's filled with buckwheat, and it's like hard and stiff, and it's like he pours the buckwheat out and fills it with water. It's like, because like, you know, the conductor was, you know, walking in, and he's overhearing the like Gordon's like, touch my breast, no, come on, touch my breast, and he's just stunned, he just ain't saying nothing. And Jim was, after he fills it with water, it's like, fine, now touch my breast. Oh, this is nice. This is, yeah, that's a breast will spill. And that whole scene cracks me up. I'm not gonna lie, because that gets a laugh out of me every time. So Jim sneaks in after he knocks out a racist idiot. He sneaks in, meets with this Asian woman who I'm shocked that, you know, is waltzing around without being talked to in kind of reckless way, because I guess that's, you know, Arliss's one of his like henchwomen. He has like a whole like handful of henchwomen to do his dirty deeds for him. She meets, her name is East. This is like a James Bond situation with these kind of pun on the names. It's like, I'm Miss East, East meets West. And so clearly she's, you know, trying to set him up. But Jim meets up with Arliss, and they just having like a you know, playing the dozens with each other. One with racist comment, the other is a disabled, you know, rhetoric, and just going fire back at each other. Which, you know, has a bit of hilarity to it too. They both be all polite about it and stuff like that, but you know, the undercutting of what they're saying. So, 1 second. Finally having like a moment to investigate. We see Rita for the first time. Well, not the first time. We see Rita at the saloon. Don't know how she made it out of that situation. Well, she ran out with other people, but she is there at this place. Once again, a Hispanic woman in a plantation area filled with, like, you know, racist idiots, is being put in a cage for sex purposes, obviously. And Jim, not dealing with that, weirdly, chose to spy on Arliss and McGrath talking, and he breaks in to get some evidence in his office, where he meets up with East again. And while she's trying to distract him, and I kid you not, I don't know how many people fell for this too when they first watched this, but one of the paintings was fake, and it was like a guy literally standing in like a very like super I don't know how this even happens, because how long is he standing there just to play pretend in case somebody walks in? that wasn't supposed to be there. B, this kind of feels like if you go to like a museum and you like those exhibits with the caveman that you see like, you know, all hollowed out, and you see them on their like kind of like locale doing various poses and stuff like that. It should feel like that as Jim is walking in, but it's not. It played like a actual painting that's moving all of a sudden, and it got me for the first time. But you know, after you see it once, you can't help but not think about it again. East tips her hand too quickly as she's like looking at the guy behind Jim. He quickly moves out of the way as the guy fires his shotgun, kills East, and using his revolvers, shoots at all the paintings, and a bunch of them start dropping. So it's like a bunch of guys just posing for an extended period of time, hoping for somebody to come walking in, or so they can assassinate them, or Lovelace tells them they can go. So he comes downstairs and grabs hold of this woman, thinking it is Gordon, but turns out to be an actual woman with large breasts. He starts drumming on them like drums, and she slapped the mess out of him. And as Gordon dressed up as like a not a prospector, but like a hunter, like like the hunt like and skin animals. He got a coonskin hat and furs and everything like that all over his person. And then he brandishes a noose and is like hang him. And then everybody's bringing Jim out to the front yard, about to hang this guy. And like, this is where I think a lot of people will take a turn for this movie, where Jim is doing his Will Smith stick, and clearly trying to stall and try to figure his way out of the situation, obviously. But it's just like, this is not funny. This is probably the first time like I actually did not laugh at something from this movie, because God, it just like, Will Smith can be very funny, but this material he could not work with this. And Gordon finds Rita, helps her escape, and as they were making an escape, the rope turns out to be made of rubber, because Gordon's invention. Jim managed to like bungee jump his way onto the carriage where Rita and Gordon were, and Jim obviously ticked off, was like, hang him, oh shoot you, Gordon. I was like, but Gordon expresses like, look, like, the rope I gave you was clearly fake, and clearly you was gonna make it out of that so you can escape, and I'll grab you in time, that kind of thing. But Gordon, Jim says like he had to go to this particular location where Lovelace and McGrath is gonna be. So he takes one of the horses off the reins, and and takes off ahead of them. Here, this tank that Lovelace has the scientists create, which he's creating bigger. It's very steampunk kind of stuff, and they're building something bigger for him, but on a smaller scale, more intimate scale, is this kind of tank that McGrath assumes that he built it for his former Confederate men to try to take back the country, because that's the overall goal of this scheme that they're hatching, is to retake the U.S. and make it a divided nation instead of the United Nations. And McGrath orders the tank to open fire on all those Confederate guys that's on the area. And McGrath is just like appalled, like why would you do this? And it's like, you surrendered. Back, what was that location? At the Appomattox courthouse, because Lovelace lost his legs at one of the battles. He was fighting for the Confederacy, but McGrath chose to surrender at the courthouse because obviously they was losing, and having a grudge against McGrath for that, chose to get his pound of flesh off of him by killing a bunch of his dudes. McGrath, seemingly about to kill Arliss, pressing a button on his wheelchair, Lovelace pulls out a mechanism with some barrel shotgun and shoots McGrath, and the henchman throws him into the waters. He washes up on the beach where Jim Gordon and Rita is. It's right after this, right before that, Jim was giving the story of this mechanized monstrosity that he only heard of, but it caused utter devastation at New Liberty, where his parents was at and died at. That's why he became a U.S. Army captain, so he can find McGrath, because it turns out, according to McGrath, that the real butcher of New Liberty was Lovelace this whole time, and he just took the rap for him. And he tells him, like, if you really want the butcher of New Liberty, you need to go after Lovelace. And he dies there. Rita mentions that, oh, I overhear with the girls. I know where they're going to be. Of course, Jim doesn't want them to come along because it's going to be dangerous. So they head off to find the reason she didn't want to come along, because one of the scientists that was kidnapped is her father, and she wants to make sure he's safe and everything like that. But she sneaks on board, and they end up getting ambushed by Lovelace, and Jim and Gordon are in this circle, and with a note left by Lovelace saying that if you stay within the circle, you'll be fine. And of course, Jim, not heeding the words of a psychopath, he steps back in, like, see, nothing happened. But a contraption nearby, which they should have been their freaking first clue, sends out these serrated discs that killed that scientist earlier in the film. Two of them starts coming after them. So they run through this cornfield and trying to outpace these things. And they come by conveniently this kind of crevice area where one's on one side, the other's on the other side, and they both jump into each other's arms, and the metal discs collide against each other. However, here's my thing: how do you know this is just isn't a complete rocky canyon below? You were so lucky that it's just complete mud on the base of the ground. Even still, it should cause some bit of injury. You just go splat. So Gordon's ticked off at Jim for not allowing him to take a moment to try to calmly figure things out to get out of that trap. But now they had no choice but to start going on a crazy chase in order to avoid getting our heads cut off. So yeah, of course he's a little upset. So he takes his frustration out, hitting like Jim collar, which messes up with the magnetic polarity. And now they, in this little comedic fashion, are the metal discs are starting to connect to anything that's metal on them. So they let it upon colliding after trying to run away from each other. They land into a nearby river, which causes one of Gordon's toolkits to fly out of his one of his pockets that he didn't bother to check, and they end up getting out. They end up fighting the secret railroad that Loveless takes, and find out that he had the scientists make this giant mechanical spider that shoots nitroglycerin rockets in order to usurp, because he has like a major technological force on his hands, so he's able to topple the US government, because he planned on dividing it up to his other conspirators, a territory for Great Britain, a territory for France, Spain, Mexico, and the Native American people. And so they go and try to stop Loveless from kidnapping President Grant, with Gordon trying to pull his same disguise trick again, trying to pretend to be Grant, to say like, oh, this guy's my double, like, go on, you're done now. And of course, Loveless takes them both, but it's like, you went through all that trouble. It's like those things, one of those guys should at least worked once. It make that entire thing pointless. It's because, like, if you're doing all that, you could have at least made it work, at least for a little while, and have Loveless try to chase down Grant. Then the movie would be a little longer than necessary. At the same time, Jim was trying to sneak on board, ends up getting shot by one of the henchwomen, but luckily he was wearing one of Gordon's inventions, the Impermeable, which is a glorified chainmail bulletproof vest. So Jim takes one of the disguises of like a belly dancer to sneak in to distract Loveless while Gordon releases all the hostages. Loveless takes off on the mechanical spider. Gordon and Jim takes Gordon's flying machines that he based off of Da Vinci's old schematics or blueprints, and he calls it his Air Gordon. Lol. And they drop like nitroglycerin bombs on top of the thing to try to like stop it, because he's trying to get Grant to legally sign off on surrendering. Grant's not budging, despite Loveless shooting at a town. And it's like, presidents don't negotiate with terrorists kind of situation, which Loveless, by this point in history, will be considered a terrorist, a domestic terrorist, and a traitor on top of that. So the guys get on board. Jim takes out a bunch of the mechanical workers on the machine, while Loveless is like, I'll handle this myself, and his wheelchair turns into like a metal thing with 4 legs, so he actually can walk around and like try to fight back. It's kind of like Doc Ock but with legs instead of arms. And uh Gordon forgot he has like a hidden pistol in his little sleeve thing. Don't know how he not realize he got this mechanism on a apparatus on your arm. You forget that, but it only has that one bullet. So he made it count by shooting at one of Loveless's legs, but it connected to this hydraulic fluid that keeps everything pumping. So now he's falling flat, and Jim has the upper hand now. But Gordon takes care of the henchwomen while him and the president tries to stop the spider from going off a cliff. So in the ensuing fight between Loveless and Jim, they this part where it's like, it's kind of cool, honestly, where they lean out the side of the exit of the machine, and only being prevented from falling thanks to Loveless's wheelchair. And Loveless says like, "Oh wow, this is a real predicament." On one hand, like I do want to save myself, but on the other hand, I could just pull this mechanism and we both can just roll back and fall to our deaths. Oh, decisions. And then, honestly, in a very ballsy way, Jim grabs the control himself, like, "Oh, allow me to make that decision for you there, Mr. Loveless." But because I like this, like, normally, it's like the hero might be hesitant and try to call the villain's bluff, but now it's like the villain's calling the hero's bluff. "Oh, you won't do it because you're just yellow." And so he pulls the thing and catches on a chain that's dangling from the spider, because it's all set up after he was fighting all those henchmen on the deck. Lois falls to his death, and they save Grant. But then they're appointed new U.S. Secret Service members, and Rita confesses to them that this wasn't really her father, it's her husband. And it's like, what's the point of all that? What was the point of you? You didn't really do much of anything, which is a waste of Salma Hayek's talent as an actor. That was ridiculous. And Grant takes their train because Loveless blew up his, so now they have to go back home riding on the mechanical spider. And that's the end of Wild Wild West. Now, this is not a good movie, but parts of this I still find charming. Maybe it's nostalgic for me because I went to theater, see it with family, and Will Smith's still pretty funny. I like his dynamic with Calvin Klein because he's pretty dang funny, especially if you watch Bob's Burgers, him as Mr. Fishholder. He's got great comedic timing. But yeah, it's like there are moments in here that I still appreciate. I revisit this every once in a while, but it's its issues is a reason why the original actors from the TV show didn't want to make a appearance in this, and why Will Smith considered this as one of his biggest career mistakes. It wasn't good. I mean, it's very middle of the road for me. It's like I can see the issues are not something I watch all the time, but it's Things could have, there's choices that could have been made. They would have made elevate this movie a slightly better. But let me know what you guys think of Wild Wild West if you seen it recently. I do still love the soundtrack, because honestly, the Wild Wild West song by Will Smith and Cisco is still slaps. I still enjoy it. I played that song as I posted my first playthrough. I mean, like on my Instagram, as I announced that I'm playing Evil West, which I wrapped up, a month or so ago. When I started early last year, I mean late last year when it came out, I posted on my Instagram with the song Wild Wild West, which is the reason why I had it on the list this month, because it just reminds me of Wild Wild West. It's like this is, so it did some things right. It's like, it's not like I said, there's been other terrible movies way worse than this by leaps and bounds. So I give it a slight grace. But anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow for more games to stream. Follow me on my various channels, like my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkingofcarl. Leave a comment below, hit the like button, share with your friends. If we get my subscriber count, it's like, we're 30 away from being 400 subscriber milestone. Once we hit that, I will be doing a Hot Ones challenge video where I'll get the hot sauces, get some chicken wings, answer all your questions either via YouTube or Twitter or whatever, and try out each of those hot sauces to celebrate my 400 subscriber count. And check me out on my Patreon, patreon.com/talkingofcarl. Links are in the description, as well as my Twitter and Instagram. And the Patreon tier list, you can choose very affordable tier rankings here, with the lowest one being just $1, and the second tier $5, and the last tier $10, where you can choose a comic, movie, a few episodes of a TV show for me to review that you want me to check out and get my opinions on, or just a general topic that you want me to discuss. And first, Patreon viewers get first access, of course, and I'll give you a shout out, the request of the shout out. So anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Hope you had like a great Valentine's Day, a very great Black History Month. The next movie I will be reviewing will be normal movies until May and June, where like Mother's Day and Father's Day come out, and then July will be like the 4th of July kind of month. But all the other days will be just normal movie reviews and comic book reviews. And the next one will be this Thursday, and it'll be Murder on the Orient Express, because Kenneth Branagh was in this, and I already reviewed Death on the Nile early last year, and I already reviewed both Knives Out and Glass Onion. So I gotta review Murder on the Orient Express to kind of complete my favorite murder mystery films. Clue's part of that is like a good murder mystery, so you can check out my Clue movie review up on my YouTube channel as well. I did that for last Halloween. But I want to do Murder on the Orient Express to complete that circle. So anyway, look forward to that, and I will see you guys soon. Take care.